Okay, for this second use case, what we're going to show is some of the operational benefits when we extend SD-WAN into our cloud providers and partners. So here we are at the SD-WAN landing page. We have a quick, easy navigation to get to something we call Cloud On-Ramp for Multi-Cloud. And as I go here and land on this page, we can see that I've got a dashboard for the specific stuff where I'm looking at connections to my cloud providers, as highlighted here, and we'll get to the interconnects later on. But here in this cloud provider section, we can see that I have a connection in our lab to AWS. And so through AWS's connection, we can see that I've got what's called a cloud gateway and a host VPC. This is a means of extending the SD-WAN all the way into your cloud provider, in this case AWS. And we do this through a means of something we call a cloud gateway. So let me show you very quickly what that would mean. If I go ahead and look at my gateway that's in place, manage the gateway that's here, and let me go ahead and hit the edit page on this. The gate that we created is AWS, and I can see information filled in here. If you take a look at this graphic on the right, this is what we're talking about here. I've got an SD-WAN fabric, my branches. I have VPCs within AWS, and I want to get those guys connected together. Think about how that would take place, or what would be required in order to get this done. And this is what's shown here. We're creating something called a cloud gateway through this set of abstractions. The cloud gateway consists of an AWS transit gateway, then a transit VPC with 2 virtual routers, and then a GRE tunnel tying these guys together. What we're doing here is basically taking care of all of this configuration, all this heavy lifting that will be part of an operational team, putting it in here and using the APIs within AWS in order to get this completely accomplished. And if I go down and look at what I've got here, I can see things like my cloud gateway name, my account that's part of my AWS account, regions and things like that. And then down here at the bottom, what routers, right, the 2 routers I'm standing up here, that I'm going to spin up in AWS in order to make this happen and extend my fabric in. You can see some information in here, along with the devices themselves, the virtual UUIDs that are in vManage in order to do that extension. So we do this, configure this element here, and once this whole gateway, cloud gateway piece is configured, now let me go back to on-ramp for multi-cloud, we can actually, it extends that cloud gateway to be able and ready to talk to our VPCs on the back end. So that piece in place, the last element to do is we take a look at what is, we're calling it intent management. But basically, if I take a look at this, what I'm really showing is I have VPCs that I'm extending into with AWS. I've got VPNs from the SD-WAN space that are coming through. So you can see the list of VPNs here, 10, 20, 30. That's what we have in our lab. Those are the service-side network connections. And they could be isolated. One could be corporate, one could be guest, one could be IoT, right? They exist as part of an isolation mechanism. If I extend my SD-WAN fabric all the way into AWS, and I've got my VPCs here, we've got 3 shown, Data Center, 01, RA, and this demo one here. Which VPNs do I want to talk to which VPCs? And it's really simply a matter of checking a box in order to have that extension happen. And now with that simple extension, I could make a modification here if I wanted these guys to talk. It basically will allow us to extend all of the routing that exists from one side to the next. All right, so great. Your question is, so what? What does this do? Well, the importance is that it allows us to use one place, one pane of glass to manage. If I didn't have this, I hadn't operationalized, or I hadn't optimized this and orchestrated this, I would have to make configuration changes on my vManage for SD-WAN. I'd have to make configuration changes on AWS and the AWS management pane, and then stitch those together through a lot of manual processes. Using APIs to automate this, we extend this thing in a very simple fashion. Now all of a sudden, the VPC that exists here in Data Center 01, its routes show up within my routing table, and they're reachable from the rest of my fabric. All right, that's what we're doing with on-ramp for multi-cloud. Of course, I go back and look at the landing page. I can do it with AWS, I can do it with Azure, I can do it with Google Cloud, and I can stitch my multi-clouds together to extend everything from one cloud provider to another, keep my security policies in place, and automate those connections.